My name is Anthony Morrow, CEO of American Eagle Gold, and with me is Neil Prowse, lead geo at NAC. Neil, congratulations on the results. We just put them out this morning. NAC 2433 intercepted 50 meters of 1% copper equivalent, 104 meters of 0.78% copper equivalent, 103 meters of 0.67% copper equivalent, all in different sections of 33. What is the significance of this hole? And are we starting to track proximity of, where the source of the system may be coming from, or part of the system may be coming from?
Yeah, 33 is 33 was drilled as the northernmost hole of our systematic drilling along that north-south trend, stepping to the west and drilling to the east of the bulk of the main drilling done by us in 2022 and 2023 and the historical operators. So it was a step out to the west and then drilling back towards the stock at depth. And it surprised. It's what we have been seeing in the north is zones of really, really solid grade, both at surface and at depth. And so hole 12, this is on the same trend as hole 12 was in 2023, which was a very, very strong hole. And, we intercepted intervals of very similar tenor to hole 12, and this is about a 250-meter step out to the north of that. So it's very good to see this mineralization continue. What's also really good is to see this mineralization continue to the north and to the east of the bulk of the main drilling. What kind of looked like hole 5 was doing back in 2022 was maybe bookending the extent of the system. And we've shown that's not the case, both with visual mineralization and holes yet to come that we're drilling further north of it, and in 33, which is showing that the mineralization, rather than trending to the northwest, is likely trending to the northeast over a fairly wide corridor. So really encouraging geometric implications of the system, the scale of the system, and the orientation of the system from what we've pulled out of 33 here. So yeah, it's really good to see the still pretty sizable intercepts of very strong grade, and then the average as a whole. There's 505 meters of 0.52 copper equivalent, and that's above 0.3 copper and above 0.2 grams per ton gold. So that's, yeah, very, very, very encouraging, I would say. And yeah, it points to grade increasing with depth as well, which is also really, really good to see.
It's definitely positive that we're seeing higher tenor of just pure copper in some of these holes. Now, do you think that 2204 and 2312, they somehow connect underneath?
Oh yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of being shown now that by the stronger grade zone in hole 30, which is between these two, and the grade in hole 14, which is also between these two, drilling in a different orientation. It was kind of what we'd suspected from pulling up that sulfide speciation model and the rough shells of where we're observing the mineralization from the 2022 and 2023 drilling. It kind of pointed to the orientation of higher grade maybe existing down northeast of that area, and we've shown that. What was really, really exciting about 33, and I was really happy to see it come back with anomalous gold and silver, was the pretty extensive interval. One of those 100-meter plus intercepts, I think it was 104 meters of 0.67% copper equivalent. Now it's between 694 and just about 800 meters. Was the presence of this really altered bleached hydrothermal breccia within what looks like the Babine stock host rock. Within that breccia, there is abundant chalcedonic veining, what looked like coliform banded quartz veins, and that hosts chalcopyrite, what looked like reworked veins of older bornite. So it shows this later pulse of what would traditionally be interpreted as more distal epithermal style precipitation of mineralization. And that's really, really interesting to see down deep here within what we see as maybe hotter indicators, close to the core indicators of bornite mineralization. So it's yeah, it's still going to take some time to interpret what this really means, but this is the best evidence to date we have of potentially telescoping migrating centers or potentially a secondary porphyry center um, on the property. And it definitely looks like right now this is potentially vectoring us into a new target zone a bit further to the northeast, actually within the Babine within the outline of the Babine which is to date being really, really underexplored because it's kind of being written off as that sort of lower grade porphyry stock core.
So this might not even be just a donut we're aiming for the mineralization, just more of a duchy, more or less.
Yeah, I mean, there might be that jewel box filling. It's again, this is pretty interpretive at this point, and it's going to take more drilling uh, and more work in the off season to really see how this ties together. There are other zones we've encountered narrower of similar looking chalcedonic veining deep within this. So pulling that all together is going to be key in helping us vector in here and really figuring out what to make of this. So yeah, very, very good to see at this stage. But again, early days here, the more we drill at NAC, the more we keep discovering, the more novel styles of mineralization we keep seeing. And so it's, every time we think we have a question answered about the donut nature of the emplacement or the the IP shoulder, which is still, I mean, this is within that IP shoulder, it's still holding, but we see added layers as we continue to drill, and it just it requires a bit more investigation to really figure out what to make of all of this.
So this model that you're working in the off season, tell us how this is really going to kind of help you with the drilling for next year.
Yeah, it's actually coming together really, really nicely. There's quite a bit of textural variation and geochemical variation within a number of different intrusive phases. And all of those intrusive phases have different relationships to the mineralization. So a lot of these narrower dikes are bounded by zones of denser mineralization in the sedimentary country rocks or in the hosting Babine stock rocks. Um, and so far, we've been able to reclassify based on integrating the geochemistry with the different textural variations within those geochemical groups and actually pulled out some actually that features narrow dikes that do have mineralization that do line up on a curviplanar surface, right? That's really hard to pull out in individual sections, but when you are piecing together all these different data points and then bringing it in 3D, it really helps it come together. So yeah, we're doing that with a number of different dike phases right now. And then the next phase is once all the assay results in, bring in the assay results and see how that actually correlates to mineralization. And that should give us a better handle on the orientation of the diking, the orientation of the mineralization, and the specific relationship between these actual dike classifications and the style and grade of the mineralization.
So we have a massive program, next year. Probably
Yeah.
up to 30,000 meters, 3 rigs. As many meters as we've done the 3 previous years. Now, once the model is done, do you think there's any? We've done a lot of geophysics. Do you think there's any geophysics that would complement, this model and the information that we got this year? Because in my perspective, it's penny wise, pound foolish. Have to do whatever we can to make sure each of those drill holes, which are expensive, go in the very right place, especially if it helps you drill around that donut, which, by the way, might not even be a donut anymore, just a big circle.
Well, additional geophysics isn't going to hurt the interpretation, right? Um, what we have to do is weigh how much benefit we're going to get. I mean, just from my perspective, just because we have quite a bit of money to spend now doesn't necessarily mean we have to spend it. At the end of the day, we're still a junior explorer and we need to be responsible with those dollars. Um, but that said, there's quite a bit more we can do geophysics wise, and I think that's going to involve some consultation with our various funding partners, seeing what they recommend. Right, we now have uh, quite a bit more resources to draw on with some people who are very experienced in doing these different geophysical methods on a variety of different porphyry copper targets. So we'll see what is recommended, but there's a number of things we can do in the off season, be that airborne MT or airborne EM, or later once the snows melt, do these more ground-based surveys that look at conductivity, resistivity, and possibly get an IP response from those as well, right? And see deeper than the traditional 2D IP methods that we've done so far.
But before we wrap up, 33 is a great hole. It kind of overshadowed 32 and 34. But obviously that's significant too. It was drilled between 12 and 17, filling in by doing systematic drilling. You want to touch on that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, you can see on the plan map there that that zone, there's about a 300-meter surface expression that's untested by historical drilling and our drilling between the systematic string of holes we did to the north along the west and the main zone of drilling right up against the porphyry stock boundary. 29 was a little bit subdued in mineralization, but what we're seeing in 32 and 34 is, albeit lower grades, still pretty consistent mineralization. And both those holes are punctuated by some really well mineralized copper bearing dikes. And it gets stronger as we get to the north. So it looks like we have this narrow zone of connectivity from the really high grade near surface south zone that then expands as we get further northward. And we know as we get to hole 13, hole 4, hole 12, 30, 33, that zone of mineralization gets stronger in grade and wider as we get further to the north. So it's given us a lot more control on this volume of essentially this volume of mineralized rock, right? We know the grade is increasing to the north now, and drilling those holes has actually really helped us tie together some of these copper bearing dikes and pull out an orientation there. So yeah, really good to be getting this information from this hole. There's still room for one more along that systematic fence, which we will drill next year. The plan was to drill it this season, but we were kind of diverted by what we encountered in the north, and so we made the call to pull the rig off of that and do some drilling in the north there.
Well, Neil, you and the team have done a really good job. I think, our job is to drill, define, and de-risk this project. And, for me, there's no project I'd rather have $37 million to spend on than that. So keep up the good work. We're gonna have a lot more news to come. We still have 5 assays pending, so please stay tuned, and thank you very much.